All right, we're recording. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the latest episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. And man, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We've got a phenomenal guest who is connected to us by another former guest of the show. So we'll bring him in a second. But first, Greg McDaniel, sitting in the co-pilot seat where you so belong. We're going to have a fun conversation about freedom today.
We are. We're really going to have a lot of fun. Bill, what am I talking about? Bart. Good Lord. My name's Greg. I should borrow a name tag so I get my own name right. Speaking of that really funny story, my mom one year for Christmas, just in case we all forgot our last names, we have t-shirts and sweatshirts that say McDaniel on the front of them. So thanks, Mom.
That totally sounds like something your mom would do.
I know. Oh my God. So Bart, dude, what you were talking about is kind of where I think a lot of agents have gone or are now. And if they have the mindset shift that you went through, I think it would be something that would be a very big value add. But I also believe that people need to go through that whole life metamorphosis. And, you know, I had the Mercedes, I had the $1 million home, I had all that stuff. For me, driving the Mercedes made me feel like a douche. Literally, I hated driving it. So I would drive I had 3 cars at one point. Why? I don't know. Because there's more than 3 days in the week. I don't know. It's a stupid move. But I sold it. And funny you said you have a Jeep. I have a Jeep as well. And I couldn't be happier, you know? But I'm going to shut up, Bart.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Bart, let me set you up a little bit. We're going to go through kind of the story arc and some of the foundational, transformational parts of your philosophy, the key distinctions and the key decisions that you hit along the way that I know people are going to get a ton of benefit from. But I want to set the stage a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the freedom and a little bit about the business model that you have right now. I know from our conversation beforehand, it involves no cold calling, no outbound calling, no door knocking, which are things that we talk about a lot on the show if you're the type of person that wants to do that. But you realize that's just not for you, and you found a business model that doesn't require any of those things. So let's start with kind of where are you at right now, what your week looks like.
Okay, so what my week looks like is this. Are you looking? No, that's about what it's about. Seriously, I have reservations in sharing it only because it almost is unbelievable, and I want it to be believable. So I do want to be able to share the backstory because it's based on 20 years of mistakes that have led me to this point. So, and in discovering who I am, which is, you know, an average person with a low amount of skill sets. I have 1 or 2 skills. And what I've discovered is if I can just stay right there with those 1 or 2 skills and surround myself with the right people that have all the other skills, then things work out well. And I always go back to a Zig Ziglar quote, which has come in and out of my life many times, which is if you help enough people get what they want, you'll always get what you want. And, you know, a lot of people will say that and maybe not mean it, but I think with guys like us, you know, the 3 of us, we've experienced it, and it is so true. So, you know, over the past 5 years, I've sold 1,491 homes, and I work maybe 8 to 10 hours a week, I would say, total.
Are you a unicorn, sir? Because you
no, one. I rode in here on a unicorn today, but no, I am not one. And what I mean by that, and that's why I hesitate to share it, because, you know, I don't want to turn anybody off, because anybody out there that's working 6 and 7 days a week, 10 and 12 hours a day, I know what that's like. And it may be for you. The cold calling, the door knocking, the telemarketing, the trespassing, the booty smooching.
Booty smooching?
All those things. You know, that's part of what goes on in in the real estate sales job.
I want to become a professional booty smoocher. Help me, teach me how to be a booty smoocher.
Just remember, Greg, the quote from Seinfeld: 99% of the population is undateable. So if you're going to be a professional booty smoocher, you're going to have to lower the old standards. But anyway, let's get back to
booty smooching is because, and again, I guess, you know, this show has a perfect name for this type of conversation.
Oh yeah,
and that is, you know, if you're a real estate agent, you booty smooch. You go on a listing appointment and you booty smooch. You're hanging out with buyers and their kids are running around slamming cabinets, kicking the dog, the seller's dog. You're still booty smooching. Well, that doesn't necessarily resonate with my soul, you know. And then the pussyfooting is something that I've done most of my life, which is, you know, I have these weird thoughts in my head, and I think I'm like broken, and there's something wrong with me. And then I realize I think what's broken is this system, you know, this process that we go through, this education that's forced upon us. And then we end up like in college studying something that like makes no sense, that only leads to a job. You know, like, who would ever want a job when you really think about it? And then I have to work 60 hours a week, booty smooching and pussyfooting. But society then tells me, well, now you drive that Mercedes, and like I drove that BMW and that Corvette convertible, and you buy expensive watches, and then what? Well, then you just want more and more and more, right? Because there's never enough. When I built the house that I'm in right now, as soon as we moved in, and it's a funny story because I left one morning on a Saturday, and I said, hey, honey, I'll be right back. Several hours later, I came back. I said, you better sit down. She's like, oh, no. I said, well, you know, we've been talking about building a new house. She's like, yeah. I said, well, I found a spot. She's like, oh, you did? You found a spot? And we live in this little section of Valparaiso. It's called Morgan Township. So small that we even have our own little school system that's separate from Valparaiso, which is a bigger school system. So my kids go to a school that's K through 12. It's the same building.
Wow.
And their graduating classes are between like 55 and 60. That's the number of kids in each class. I'm attracted to that because I'm an introvert, and I came from a big school where I don't remember hardly anybody except my short circle of friends. So anyways, I said, yeah, I found this land. She's like, oh, is it in Morgan Township? Yeah, it's in Morgan Township. And it's 40 acres. And she's like, what? What do you mean 40 acres? I thought you were just looking for a plot of land. Well, I found a plot. It just happens to be 40 acres. So,
I think a 40-acre plot, but hey.
Yeah. So I purchased this 40 acres, and then I sell it to her like, hey, we're gonna design the house around the kitchen that you want, because the house that we are in had a tiny little kitchen. So of course she's like, oh, that sounds great. So we build this house, and it's finished. It's not a huge house, but it's bigger than what we need, but I didn't know that at the time. So it's 4,300 square feet, but that includes the finished basement, which we had finished at the time of construction. And this place is gorgeous.
And you have how many kids? 7, 13, 17?
I have 3 kids.
3.
Okay. Kid 1, kid 2, and kid 3. Okay.
And that's their names.
That's what I call them.
Yeah. Hey, kid 2, get over here. Quit picking on kid 3. Damn it.
They know they're in trouble when I use kid 1, kid 2, or kid 3. So the story is, and this is what I think is, you know, kind of wrong with the systems and the processes and the philosophies that we somehow follow, is that as soon as we moved into this house, I was already planning the mansion that I was going to build in the back corner of the farm. I mean, that's how ridiculous I was at that time. But I didn't know any better because, you know, I grew up, we didn't have any money. My parents divorced when I was young. My father was an alcoholic. He was verbally and at times, not often, but at times, not often, so I'm making excuses for him, at times had been physically abusive with my mother. So what did I want? I wanted money, right? I wanted the one thing we're all sold on, which is once you get the money, you know, then you get it all, the women's and all the cars and the Mercedes Benzes.
So that has to be women's plural. Yeah.
Yeah. The women's.
It can't just be a woman. It's got to be women.
A lot of S's after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's, so when I say I work a very limited schedule, it's true. I'm probably exaggerating on the 8 to 10 hours. It's probably less than that. It is likely less than that. But what I do have around me is an incredible team of people. I have agents, and I don't have a lot of agents. I have this small little team, you know, and there's times where I'm like, I'm going to start recruiting everybody. I can't believe that other guy has 50 agents. I could have 100. And it's like, wait, then I just end up with more of the booty smooching and the pussy footing.
Yeah.
I've got this small team, and they're fantastic because what I do is I give them all of my leads. I help them create their own leads. And then I treat my agents as my clients. So they want to make more sales and they want to make more money so they could get the BMW and the Mercedes-Benz. So I treat them as such. And in doing so, and how I try to train them is kind of how I try to train the staff, which is through direct experience, right? So instead of me just telling you, it's more of, you know, here's what to do. Now go do it and then come back and tell me how it went. Or, you know, like in the very beginning, I'll go with you. Or you go with them. I don't do that anymore either. But, you know, and so this is what's going to go on at the appointment. Then the appointment happens. This is what went on. And what do you think of that? And train them firsthand so that, as you know, in this business, it's not the number of years, it's the number of transactions, right? So you can have a fully functional, expert, trained agent in a year if they're doing enough transactions. So that's kind of the system that I built, and I built it kind of with that I had to. It was self-preservation because, as you guys know, the real estate, I don't know why I want to whisper this, the real estate sales business is phenomenal. The job of real estate agent, not so much, kind of sucks. So, you know, and it led to, or I should say the tipping point became in 2012, my wife and I were on vacation with another couple. We're in Mexico. At the end of the night, she looks me in the eye and she says, should we get a divorce? And it was like, I was hit over the head with a frying pan. It came to me, it came out of the blue, like nowhere. Like, oh my gosh, you know, she's probably got some men's on the side or something, you know, something's happening. And the reality is when the market tanked back in 2008 and my real estate sales business netted $100 in 2009, I was like, uh-oh, time to get back to work. Because I had already worked my way out of production and had a team that was handling things.
Right.
But as Warren Buffett says, you know, when the tide goes out, you see how many people are skinny dipping. And I was skinny dipping on many levels, you know, from a debt perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, from a team perspective. And so I got back into production. And that's when, you know, I went back to the cold calling, went back to the booty smooching, and it works. You know, there's the one thing about real estate sales that I think is incredible. One of the many things is that everything works. Now, you could stand outside Walmart with a cardboard sign that says, "We'll work for commissions," you know, and somebody's going to list their house with you, you know?
Yeah.
So I went into that. I told you guys before, I went on over 100 listing appointments in 2011. I was working 6 and 7 days a week, 10 and 12 hours a day. And when I wasn't working, I was thinking about work, right? So if you're at dinner with the family and the phone rings and you pick up your BlackBerry, do they still have BlackBerries?
No.
No, they don't. And you're texting people and you're reading books and you're thinking about business and you're not paying attention to your wife, then she tells a story in her head. And her story was that I had lost interest in her. So she was like, you know, we're not communicating. We never talked like we used to. So, I mean, have you lost interest in me? I'm like, no, still the opposite. But I was just doing what I trained myself to do. And that was to work my face off. You know, if in the worst circumstances, the one thing we can always do is outwork people. And that's what I did. But then it led to that tipping point. It was like, okay, this time I'm really going to figure something out. So in 2013, it was towards the end of 2013, Stacy, my bodacious bride, and I, we were at a Kinder Reese conference, and it was a 4-day conference. And we skipped the 4th day, and we just hung out with each other. And we sat, and we're like, okay, we don't need any new ideas, really. What should we do? What do you always preach? It's clean up the database and communicate properly. So we cleaned the database up. You know, I was using Top Producers, still do, had like 27 different types of tags, you know, that so we cleaned all of that up, came up with just a handful of tags. I think we lost count at 32, because what I was doing is I was cleaning it up. And one of the ways is I was looking to see if people had sold in the meantime.
Oh,
During
that's
that
a
one
that's a
session,
hard exercise to do.
it is so hard and so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We lost track or I stopped counting, I should say, I think at 32 or 37. And that was just in that one session of cleaning up the database. So
Oh, seriously.
seriously.
So you sit down for a couple hours and just go through contacts, and you came up with somewhere around 35 transactions you missed out on.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's, it's heartbreaking because what happens is, and it's natural because I've watched it with my team, we don't always think of our database as leads. In fact, we really don't. We think of leads as leads, right? Give me those internet leads that I have to, hit over the head with a club to get them to do business with me, or that I have to beg and booty smooch and pussyfoot around to have them consider it. And yet our database is gold and it's everything. So at that meeting, it was, we came away with 2 or 3 objections, our primary concerns, which was to organize a database, to come up with a proper plan for communication, something that we could do that I would actually stick to, because if it was calling anybody, I wasn't going to stick to it.
Yeah.
And then finally deploy a printed monthly newsletter, which one of my mentors, Dan Kennedy, had been telling me for years and years and years. I've got a stack of his printed newsletters right behind me.
Yeah.
To do. So finally in January of 2014, we got that thing off the ground. And it really changed the trajectory of my business, and I wrote down a couple of the numbers just to give you an idea. So the first year, or the year before we did the newsletter, we sold 151 homes, 57 of which were sphere of influence. So that's 37% of our business came from our sphere of influence, which, that was because my model was still the old school cold calling and the booty smooching. So the first full year, the only thing we really did is this. We put in the printed monthly newsletter. I joined Send Out Cards, and we did New Year's, spring, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, and a birthday card. I wrote out 2 versions of each to be rotated through in 2 years, filled up the Send Out Cards database. And if you guys have ever used Send Out Cards, they're pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I use them. I use them as much as I can. They're phenomenal.
They're phenomenal, and they've got what I have to have, which is a system. Just as Michael Gerber tells us to do in the E-Myth, you build the system, and then you have the people run the system. It's just that simple, and that's what it has to be for me. Because, like I told you, I have very few skills. One of them, one of my skills is I like to chase everything. Like, what was that? That looks exciting. Was that a Facebook bot? I'd like to get in on that. All those things. That's why I mentioned all those coaches I've had. Right? Yeah. Buffini, Ferry, Proctor, Kinder Reese, the core, whoever's ever, if they say they're a coach, I'm like, I want a coach, because what shiny object do you have?
Yes.
So first year with the newsletter, we went from 151 homes sold to 208. Okay. But 123 of those were sphere of influence. So that's 50%.
Wow.
The second year, we went to 263 sales. 177 of those was sphere of influence. And then the following year, we did 468 transactions. 295 of those was sphere of influence. And we went from, because I've got to, let me just back up to tell this crazy story. Because that's how my mind works. It's like you could picture the drunken monkey up there right now, because that's what goes on. So back in it was January of 1983, I'm in my dad's trailer, right? So my parents are divorced, not spending much time with my dad. And for some reason, I'm there with him in his trailer on his 40th birthday. That's probably the reason I was with him. Now, I remember thinking, 40. My dad's old, burned into my memory. And then, as we all know, time flies by. Next thing I know, it's 2011, and kid 1, kid 2, and kid 3 have that same look on their face, like Dad is an old goat. So that night, I told my wife, I'm leaving you. I found a Brazilian side piece, and no, I didn't do that. I sat down and I made a crazy goal list. Like, it wasn't a midlife crisis thing. It was, wait a minute, what is going on? What's still out there that I really have always wanted to do? So one was to straighten my teeth, because I had like these jacked up, crazy teeth that I begged my mother not to get me braces back in middle school because it wasn't going to be cool. And of course, I regretted it ever since.
Yep.
So I feel, so that was on the list. Straighten the teeth. Learn to swim. I never learned to swim. So taught myself in the old backyard pool. Now I'm kind of like Mark Spitz. You guys are probably too young.
No, we do get the reference, yeah.
I also made a goal to write and publish a book, to make $1 million in 1 year in our real estate sales business, to sell the Dairy Queen. That's another story.
Okay.
And to pay off the house by December 31st, 2016, and to get visible abs. Okay. So all of those things were part of the story, right? So I made those goals, some of which, were outlandish. But as we started to move along and Stacy asked me if I wanted a divorce, and I began to redefine my life and change the trajectory, finally get in the printed monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, it became kind of an outlet for me to talk about the mistakes that I made and the life lessons that I learned. And I think because of it, it attracted people to, the vulnerability that I was like basically demanding of myself, because we hide behind these personas, in our social media highlight reels. And, we brag about not getting enough sleep and grinding our face off and doing those things that really, for me, they don't work, So I had my ladder up the wrong building. I was climbing the wrong tree. I had to get back to what really was going to work for me. And writing in that newsletter, as much as the monster, because next to the drunken monkey in my head is the monster, the one that's like, that's a dumb idea. That's a terrible article. Nobody's going to read that. You're that pathetic kid that was sitting in that trailer, between your senior year in high school and your freshman year in college, when your mom and your stepfather got a divorce. That one time where I'm staring up at that sparkly popcorn ceiling. You remember those ceilings?
Oh, love that ceiling.
Yeah. Well, my aunt had that in the trailer of her double wide. And that's where we lived because my stepdad kept the house. And I remember thinking to myself, there's got to be more to this than what I'm experiencing. And these little nuggets finally started to kind of compile, and that has led me to, the journey that I find myself on, that I'm at today, with all the mistakes that I've made. But in that newsletter, it was an outlet to kind of tell some of these wild stories. Like I tell you about, we went through a spell when I was planning the mansion, in the backyard, after just moving into this brand new home. That same year, I bought a Dairy Queen. I went to a David Lindahl conference. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Apartment House Riches was the program I bought, because I'll buy anything. Whatever you guys are going to sell today that's a program about personal development or whatever, I'm buying it. But I've always done that, and sometimes I'll even put things into action. But I bought that Apartment House Riches program. It was $750, and I added like 100 units to our portfolio that year. Okay, so kid 3 is born in December of 2007. Not that that's not enough stress, but now we had a Dairy Queen, 100 rentals. We're up to 115 rental properties.
Goodness.
Because I was still on the treadmill of, I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to do things to get rich. And then when the market was dragged down in 2008, finally in the Midwest, it came crumbling down as well. And I had mentioned that I made $100 net profit in 2009 in my business. That's when it was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? And then when my wife threw the cold water in my face, finally was the wake-up call that really changed my philosophy, which was, I don't need more, I need less. I don't need to work more hours, I need to work less hours. I don't need to buy more things, I need to cherish less, and that's what it's been forming in my thought process, So, and it's not easy to talk about these things, because when people that are still in the struggle, I don't even know if they want to hear it. But when I tell them that, there is no happiness, there's no destination. Like, oh, I've arrived at happiness. And that's what I was chasing. If I had enough money, if I had a big enough house, house, fancy enough watch, and a fleet of cars, of course I was going to be happy because that's what's sold to us in the commercials and on the videos and on or MTV Cribs.
Yeah.
All of that, we all buy into it. I bought into it. I still get teased by it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, I'm driving along in my 2008 Jeep Grand Cherokee, but I could turn in to the Chevy dealership and write a check for a brand new Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
Still have those urges.
Yeah.
We were just kid one. We just bought her a hyena sombrero. What's it called? A
Hyundai Santa Fe.
Yeah, it was a Sonata.
Hyena sombrero.
I'm like, what?
I'm like, what's funny is how I heard her pronounce it to her friends later that day. She's like, it's a Hyundai.
Hyundai.
Yeah, I was cracking up. But we're sitting there. I'm buying this thing cash. It's used, and in there is like a CX-5 or something, whatever their sport utility is. Mm-hmm. And my wife, of course, she opens the door and gets inside, and then she climbs out and she's like, woo, I really want that. It's nice. You know, it's that new car smell. She drives a 2008 Dodge Grand Caravan minivan. Okay.
Okay.
So I've beat her over the head with my philosophy, and now she tries to beat others over the head with it as well. But we don't get drawn back in. So it's like we're sitting there, and I'm like, you know, looking at that brand new showroom car as I'm paying cash for this other car. And my ego is like, just write a check, buy that thing right now. Your wife deserves it. She puts up with you and your drunken monkey after all. But I didn't, and I don't. Oh, I forgot to mention. So also on that goal list was to quit tobacco. I had chewed tobacco, you know, skull between the lip and gum for 9 years. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So made that list. 2000. So got braces right away. 2012. Learned to swim in my backyard above ground swimming pool.
Nice. Good touch.
I would have never done such a thing. You know, it would have had to have been $100,000 in-ground pool.
Right.
And finally in June of 2014, I quit chewing. Okay. So no more, the weird
Lippers. Yeah.
Right, yeah. No more lippers, which, you know, when you get to be my age, it gets a little odd. You know, your friends come over. It's like, what's that weird cup in the corner?
Oh, that's the red cup with a weird dark liquid. You're like, oh, don't get too close. It smells.
Right. Do not
drink this. It's not coffee left over from this morning. Okay.
So we move along, and then and on September 30th, 2016, we paid off the house, which was like, when I set that goal, it was one of those goals where you're like, that'd be cool. But I almost didn't really think about it again till I was reviewing those goals again in 2016. I'm like, hey, I'm starting to check some of these off, and I think we could pay this house off right now. So even though financially it really doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, because we're real estate investors, we can make a lot more money on the real estate investment side than paying off my 3.25% mortgage. But it was that peace of mind. It was like, oh yeah, that's the word, peace of mind. That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I was doing the opposite of when we had the second home down in Bonita Springs, Florida, and I was driving the Corvette convertible, and I was paying golf memberships down there and hardly ever golfing. But I had a set of sweet clubs down there with some beautiful Nike spikes and all my Titleist balls that I was hitting right into the creek. You know?
Wait, the clubs didn't make you magically better? I don't understand.
That's what I was sold on, but it still didn't go straight and still didn't go far. You know, so it was like all of that was leading up to, you know, some thoughts where, what am I doing here? And that's kind of led to, I'm just trying to live the good life. You know, I don't need to get super wealthy. I don't need to be a billionaire. I've got plenty of semi-passive income coming in. It exceeds my living expenses now. We've sold off, you know, we started paring down we had 115 rentals at one time. We're down to 36, and 11 of those 36 are paid off. So, you know, that, and then it's like, whoa, that's what you're supposed to do in the real estate investment business, is hold these things free and clear of any debt. And And then we were moving along. In 2017, we sold the Dairy Queen, which my wife happened to announce was one of the 5 top happiest days of her life. And I was like, married, kid 1, kid 2, kid 3. That doesn't leave a lot of room.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's such a cliche, right? The happiest day of any person's life is the day they buy a Dairy Queen and then the day that they sell the Dairy Queen. I mean, I know it's been said. It's been said many times before, but yeah.
I think it's the same sentence about the boat, right? Buying and selling the boat. Wait a minute, I could have as many dilly bars as I want. Why wouldn't I want a Dairy Queen?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's funny. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to dig into here in the last few minutes that we have left. Before we do that, Bart, what's the best way to just connect? Like, how do people get into your world? Because I know you've got a program for the good life and all that stuff, which is why Tom connected us. How do people get connected with you?
Well, here's what I have that I just share openly, and there's no obligation whatsoever. realestategoodlife.com. Opt in, and I send you a bunch of free stuff, including the Good Life Tracker that I used to use back in the day when I was doing the cold calling and the booty smooching. I still give those to my team in case they want to do any pussyfooting and cold calling. But I also have a copy of my newsletter, like my very first original one is like the ugliest newsletter in the history of man, along with a recent copy. So they can copy the articles, the idea of it. It's a very simple philosophy, because if you're going to do one thing, do the printed monthly newsletter and then do all the other crazy, shiny object chasing you want, but do that because it works. And, I want to talk later about how I think that's going to help us with our business regarding Zillow and these other guys that are coming after us. So realestategoodlife.com, just opt in, bunch of free stuff there.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure that gets into the show notes. Just real quick before we jump into kind of Zillow proofing and open door proofing our business, you mentioned going down from 100 and some down to 30 some doors. And some of those are free and clear, but not all. What was the strategy and what was the reason why you pared down so much? I mean, dumping 2/3 of your investment doors.
I wish my wife was here right now because she would jump right in on this answer. So when I bought that David Lindahl course, that year I bought a 52-unit government subsidized apartment complex that was nearly an hour away from my home.
Wow.
And a 24-unit apartment complex here in Valparaiso, Indiana. So in one fell swoop, I added those 2 big units, both of which I was working on and negotiating while I was down at my second home in Bonita Springs. That does not make for a happy family vacation when I'm running I think it was Office Max. Is that still a place?
Yep.
I was running the Office Max to fax. We were still faxing things.
Yeah.
Or emailing and going to the library to check emails and things. It was just a crazy time, but I was going to get rich, right? I didn't care about the peace of mind. So the first big lopping off that we did was we sold off the 52-unit government subsidized apartment complex, which was essentially an ongoing live in real time Jerry Springer show. The stories that we have just from that time would fill up several interviews, several conversations between us.
Okay.
From there, the strategy became, what I felt was like the perfect model. Which units do we like the least? Okay, let's start by getting rid of them, because when I started to buy them, my very first property that I bought, which I still own, I bought before I could afford it. Oh, hey, honey, remember what I was telling you about getting in the real estate investing? Well, we are landlords. And it was like, I didn't have any money.
Pop a bottle of champagne, but it better be $2 chuck.
Exactly. So I was like, well, now I've got a rental property. So it had to be rented. And then as I started adding those first several, I was buying them like whatever the opposite of the right way would be is how I was buying them. Okay. I would put like 5% down, and then I'd have a 15% mortgage and an 80% mortgage. And those 15%ers, some of them were up to like 9% was the interest rate on them.
Whoa.
So as we started as the smoke cleared and I like started to regain consciousness from being a psychopath, it was like, okay, get rid of this government subsidized place, even though that makes money. You got to pay somebody to own a place like that. And the government writes you or wires you the money. So it,
welcome to being
do I want to buy it? I think I want to buy another one.
Yeah.
So we started paying off those second mortgages that had the higher interest rates.
Yeah.
Then we started selling off the units that we liked the least. And then part of that process started to build up our war chest enough that we were able to then pay the house off. And then it became what I've been describing to my wife as, this is like a wealth snowball that we're building. We're paring down our living expenses. We're knocking out all this debt. We have zero personal debt right now.
Yeah.
We haven't had car loans in years. We pay our credit card off each and every month. We use Southwest Visa, so we get the free miles and all that kind of good stuff. We run our business through it. So every year we get a companion pass. So wherever I go, Stacy goes for free. And like I told her, if she ever leaves me, I'm coming with her. So
you think you're getting some men's, so you got another thing coming. Like I'm right there with you.
Let me see these men's.
That's right.
They're out there. But so then we started knocking off the homes we liked the least, and then based on geography. Let's bring this in closer and closer to home.
Right.
And our crown jewel is still the 24 unit that we bought back then. I love that, and I've made like a incredible goal, like the time I made the goal for the visible abs, that my family has laughed at me ever since. Until I did it, I'm going to share that story with you.
Okay.
But I'm going to pay that off completely, and right now that loan is about $1,030,000 is still left on that. But at one time, I owed like $1.5 million on it, so. It's down to $1 million. The current loan comes due on September 15th, 2022. And I'm making this claim right here, right now. Because you know how it's done. You just say it and then you believe it and then it happens. That's like part of this.
Speak it into existence.
Speak it into existence. It really works, and it like freaks me out sometimes. But that debt will be completely eliminated on that day. So, and then we will have no debt, no investment debt, no personal debt. And of course, then that adds that much more passive income. So I don't remember what the question was, but I think I answered.
It was just about, knocking it down to the doors, which you answered, which that's, so now you've got the crown jewel and then you've got some other things, and 11 of those are paid off, which is awesome. Okay, let's finish out with this. And because we're going to have to, it's a done deal. We're going to have to bring you back and we'll talk about more fun stuff. Let's quickly go through just how are you looking at Zillow and Open Door and recommending to yourself and other friends in the business to deal with this new phenomenon?
I am recommending what I've always recommended, that I haven't always even bought into on my own, and that my team still struggles with, and that is the database. If we become more and more intimate and in a relationship with our database, all of our past clients, all of our friends and family members, all of those people, if we put into place a proper communication plan, if you're an introvert, you can build it out. You can copy mine, realestategoodlife.com. The whole thing is laid out there, and examples of everything. Communicating with them and getting them into a relationship with us as a person, like who we really are, without the facade, without the phony baloney that goes along with a lot of the personas that we portray. That works. It works so well that when I recommend and convince other people to do their newsletters and to be vulnerable, they always are kind of bowled over at the response they get. People reach out to them. So like when I talk about in 2017, I wrote it down somewhere. In 2017, I had 210 booze days, okay? A booze day, I track everything, probably like you guys. A booze day is whether you had one glass of wine or one 12-pack. That's a booze day, okay?
Okay.
And we vacation a lot, and part of vacation, a requirement is cocktails, right?
Oh, okay. So
you add those up with
this is a positive metric. This is you want a minimum and then go up from there, not a maximum of booze days.
Well, when I started really tracking it, and then I added the number, and it was like 210. How could you possibly have 210 booze days out of only 365 days? Yeah. So then I completely thought through that entire process again to say, should I really be doing that? And the answer, of course, had been for years, no. And finally, when I added that to my visible abs plan, it worked. And I cut down from 210 booze days to 85 days. And 85 days still sounds like a lot until you track it. 85 is nothing for a social introvert that goes on a lot of vacations. But when I tell those intimate stories in the newsletter, and like the monster's like, never do that. Nobody will ever want to talk to you and be your friend. And the opposite happens. They're attracted to you being a real person, because I'm just that vulnerable, scared kid that almost fainted before I got onto this interview because of how nervous I was.
No. Well, you couldn't tell, first of all, but yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's going to help a lot of people, because we absolutely do feel like that. I see it a lot, coming from where I did working at Viral, and trying to get people to do videos, and just how much it freaks people out, not just because it's a different form of vulnerability. It's a vulnerability about how you come across and how you look and how your body language is and stuff like that. But it's all the same thing. Like we're afraid to be judged, and that monster, that resistance inside is yelling at us just in the exact same way before we jump on a Facebook Live as it is when you're writing your monthly print newsletter. So, I mean, for anybody that's listening or watching, that should be hugely encouraging, that just doing it solves the problem, and people do respond to it.
No, Zillow is coming. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the vulnerability I think is so refreshing to folks, because nobody gets it anymore. They get the fake version. They get the Instagram model version of all of our lives, when in reality the chick's chubby, but she, filtered herself down to look amazing. I have a weekly radio show that I do, and our last yesterday on Sunday, I talked about my bankruptcy, my foreclosure, the what I went through. That was the topic of the show. And I was 100% transparent, and you could hear a pin drop in the studio, because people don't expect to tell the horrible things about your life. They only expect to see the highlight reels. And I think when you see a real person interacting and going, hey, I drank 3 days this week, I shouldn't have done that. Or, no, I told I wasn't going to drink during the week and I did, and that's my bad. I know this is what I'm doing. But they celebrate the losses. They celebrate the wins with you. When I would tell my story about a particular breakup that happened about 4 years ago, give or take 4 or 5 years ago, literally nearly killed me. And then I talked about my bankruptcy and my foreclosure, and I packaged it all in my life story. When I would tell my life story on stage or anywhere else, people it's dead silent. And then people come up to me. You think that, oh my God, I'm being vulnerable right here, and this is going to be something that's going to be a detriment to me. But it's only a positive, because people who are ashamed, they'll come up to you like, hey, dude, can we talk? Because I kind of went through something like that. How'd you deal with that? Yeah. And all of a sudden you're empowered to continue to tell the truth, because you see the impact on other people's lives, and it becomes something that you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. But everybody still only wants to play the highlight reel. And
no, it's so true. And I think you all those words you just said was like giving me shivers on my face, because I think there's a starving, silent majority of people that exist, that we're all here. We all want we all want connection. We don't want to stare at our phones all day and make fake posts with filters. We want real connection, and we're being directed around with the social media because they've tapped into some psychological triggers that are working exceptionally well to keep people on their devices. And then it's a great place to be able to be an internet bully, or to be an internet model, or to be a troll, all those things. And so then we start to think, well, is everybody going crazy? And really they're not. All of them still exist. It's just the outer edges of each side have the more vocal voices, while the rest of us are like, oh my gosh, I'm not happy about where things are going. But when you have these conversations with people, like you just said, when you tell your story and you're vulnerable, and you talk about things that people don't normally talk about, it really brings them in, and which goes to a story of one of the very first articles I wrote in my newsletter was the story about Stacy asking me, should we get a divorce? And right after that newsletter came out, I'm on the track at the YMCA, and I'm jogging like at a snail's pace, because that's as fast as I could go. And one of my buddies that's on my list, like an old friend from high school, who we rarely ever talk anymore, he comes right up next to me and he starts talking. He's like, yeah, it was a great newsletter. And I could tell there was something he wanted to say, right? So we're talking. And then he's like, because I left that newsletter on a cliffhanger, which is, part of what you want to be able to think about. And I explained that on the Real Estate Good Life of, there is a way to write these that become more, they become entertainment. We do want to be able to, as Dan Kennedy says, don't be boring. So entertain them, be vulnerable, but, think of it as, this is it's kind of my reality show that I can entertain these people with. And in doing so, it builds rapport from one to many. So finally he gets to it. He's like, so what happened? I didn't know you guys were having problems. I'm like, I didn't know it either. And I started and then he tells me the story. He's like, yeah, me and Brandy, we had similar problems. And it was because of this, this, and this. And then we talked like guys don't normally talk.
Yeah.
We're starving for that. When we have the opposite in our face all day, we're starving for intimate relationships with quality people that are like-minded. And there's more of us than we believe there is. Talking to you two guys right now, I could talk to you guys all week, although I'm an introvert, so I'm going to pass out soon.
Yeah.
You know what, Bart, we had one of my coaches, Bill, on, and he talked about being nosebleed honest. And, I think that's what people are dying for. And I think if you could be nosebleed honest, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have an honest conversation with every single person you come in contact with, no matter if it's going to hurt their feelings or not, but it's 100% honest and true and transparent and authentic to you and to the situation. You take one person out to lunch every single day for 5 days a week, and then you send that person a send out card. How fast do you think that business will explode?
Immediately. It will explode immediately. And you build a plan around that based on exactly what you just said. And it's basically, I call it digging a moat around your business. Because what I try to do with the debt freedom and everything is I'm trying to dig a financial moat around me and my family. That I'm not saying there's another crash that's coming, but we always know there's ups and downs. And I've been through the crash. I'm not going through it again with those types of sleepless nights. So the same goes on with your business. If you can build it authentically with the people that want your message the most, that respond to your message the most, you will separate yourself from the pack. Because I see way too much these new agents come in, they don't know what to do. The first thing they do is they start turning over their credit card to Zillow. And that's all they know. I just saw it in a Facebook forum the other day. It was like, well, if you don't do Zillow, or they mentioned some other source of buying leads, well, how do you get leads? And I was like, what? What do you mean? How do you get leads?
You go make a friend. You eat lunch. You got to do it anyways. Get out of your own way. There's my dad's been in the real estate game for 47 years. Wow. And he said, Greg, if I was to give you one piece of advice, this is what it would be. Go have lunch or breakfast with someone or a group of up to 3 other people and help them get business, and just be a conduit. And I said, okay. And I'm actively now working on it. I have a stack of cards here from people that came through my last networking event that I do with Rockstar Connect. And the funny thing is that I've been too much of a pussy to pick up the phone. Yeah, pussyfoot. I've been pussyfooting around. All the feminists are going to hate us. There are going to be so many angry memes on this. But I've been pussyfooting around. I'm picking up the phone and calling people and been like, hey, I had a great time meeting with you last time at the event. Can I buy you lunch? You know what? I would rather make 500 cold calls than pick up and do one warm call a day for the fear of rejection. But the fear of rejection is combined with the fear of success, because of people are not in the struggle to build their business. And all of a sudden they have a thriving business. What's their identity now? People haven't been able to go through that metamorphosis yet, because it's like going through like all the people that you went to get coaching with. You're the guy hunting down his business, guy trying to build up his business. Well, who are you and what's your identity when you build your business? Yet it's someone you don't know yet. And a lot of people are afraid to meet that other person, because what is the cost of becoming that new person? You lose a relationship, you gain a relationship, you're going to have to sell a house, buy a house. I mean, what is that going to look like? But people stay in their cocoon and don't venture out. So my proclamation is that I will quit being a bitch. I will pick up the phone and make the mother effing phone calls. because it's just one call. Like here's a girl, Heather. I don't know what she does. Let's see what she does. She's a technical recruiter. Zero value to me, right? But I don't know if she's going to get together and maybe she or someone she knows because of our interaction might want to buy or sell, or I can bring some value to them. Last week I went to a lunch. 2 weeks I went to a lunch with my buddy. He's a real estate broker, complete competitor, right? But I haven't seen him for a while. Sat down, had a big old burrito, ate too much. I felt like shit for the rest of the day. But he and I, long story short, he's going to be a sponsor of my real estate radio show. And I've been looking for sponsors. And we found that out over a burrito. So what could you find out over a sandwich, a salad, a beer, a burrito, whatever? What could you find out?
You can find out everything.
You can find out everything about someone. And maybe it's not what you're going to gain. It could be what you can give. Mm-hmm. And that's the power.
This is the power, right? Mm-hmm. And that is helping enough people get what they want. So you get what you want. And I know we're running not long, but it reminds me of a story. So last summer, Stacy and I were out on a walk. We live out here in the country. We're out when it gets warm, because it's rarely warm here. We're out on a walk together, long walk, and we're talking. And, I'm talking about the budget and all the money these wasteful kids are spending on garbage and everything. And then she says, well, I don't worry about money. And I was like, normally the monster in my head was like, well, sure, sweetheart. Of course you don't worry about money. You'll leave that to me. But I didn't this time. I'm like, there's something therapeutic, meditative about a walk with the sunshine, with the vitamin D. I'm like, okay, don't say that. Don't say that. And I said, well, why don't you worry about money, honey? And she says, well, Bart, years ago, you told me that if we help enough people get what they want, we'll always get what we want. And what do we do, Bart? And she wasn't like she was just being, honest. Like, and what do we do every day? What do we do? And I said, we help people get what they want. She's like, that's why I don't worry about money. And I was like, wow. She did it again. She changed my life again, because her and I, we come from two different money mindsets. I grew up without any, so I'm like, somebody's gonna take it. I gotta get it. I'm gonna get more of it. Spend less. Get on it. Put that down.
Kid one. No. Kid two. Hit kid one.
That's right. No college for you. No college for you.
And she comes from the mindset that anything's possible, and like you said, say it in the belief and say it in the happening. So if we do the right things, if we're living by the golden rule, if we're helping enough people get what they want, we always get what we want. And then she started pointing out like specific times, like, remember that time we were in a crunch and then that happened? It was like, oh man, you're starting to freak me out, because it's that like bizarro law of attraction stuff.
It shows up.
It shows up.
It just literally magically appears right at the very instant you need it. And you cannot explain this shit. It just happens. I have my goals on my computer. I review at least 3 times a day. I read them out loud. They become like part of my subconscious. If I'm bored, I break them out on my phone. I read through them again. And Bart, they're starting to come true.
Isn't that scary?
They're starting to come true.
And I like how you whispered it, because that's how I want to say it. It's kind of like when I tell people how little I work at the office. It's the same with that. It's like you can't tell a regular person this kind of stuff, because they will stick a stake through your heart and think you're like a werewolf or a vampire. But dude, all these things are crazily true.
It's crazy true. I worked with my coach, Bill. He changed my verbiage on my goals. Here's the funny thing. I want to start doing events, and I'm going to make Matt come to a couple of them. He's going to speak with me, and he's going to smile the whole time. And dude, this gal, I was calling her to be a rep for my sales for my radio show, right? She's probably not going to be a rep for me. But what she does do is she throws events for people, and she's like, "Dude, I'll throw an event for you. I've talked to you for 10 minutes. I really like your vibe. I can help you throw and get free event locations in Hawaii and LA. Which one would you like to start with?" And I can probably get about 600 people to the one in Hawaii because I live there and I know how to do it. I'm like, so Matt, I called Twiddle. I'm like, Twiddle, you want to do an event in Hawaii in October? He's like,
yes, we do.
Alrighty, mate. Let's do it.
And there you have it.
That's right.
So it is.
Oh man. Okay. Well, we have gone over, but I want to remind everybody, realestategoodlife.com. I love at the top. It's no more cold calling, door knocking, or booty smooching.
Boom.
That is the tagline. I love it, Bart. That is awesome. I hope everybody goes there, grabs the download. This has been a ton of fun. Okay, so that's how they connect with Bart. Greg, how do they connect with you?
First, I want to know if we can keep Bart because I want to have him back. This has been a lot of fun. But go to bookmcdaniel.com. Again, it's bookmcdaniel.com. Let's talk about EXP. Let's talk about you and me. But let's talk about, the tribe Matt and I are building, the people we're associated with, like Bart. I mean, imagine being able to live around that quality of people, or if someone's like, hey, dude, I'm really in a funk. I'd be like, dude, I have my boy Bart, man. You got to go sign up for his stuff. He's going to give you all kinds of free stuff, get your mindset screwed on and get you out the door. How'd you like that? Oh, okay. That's the kind of stuff we're going to have, guys. Join our tribe. Go to bookmcdaniel.com, book 30 minutes with me. Let's talk about EXP. Matt, rating this amazing podcast. Where do they?
Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Make sure to give Bart a shout out in your review if you enjoyed his episode.
Well, they are going to enjoy the episode, Matt. Don't be silly.
I know.
Come on. Jesus. I've talked to you about this before. Matt, give me a color. Quick.
Bright, sunshiny yellow for the magnificent yellow here in San Diego.
Dude, you remember going to my parents' house? Did you ever walk in my mom's office and you remember how bright that room is? Like, it is like vibrantly yellow. Like it is the yellowest it can be. And it's windows. No, it's not windows. It's doors and ceiling. It's all bright yellow. It's almost a little too much. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. We went a little long on this one, but Bart was bringing knowledge bombs hardcore. We couldn't cut him off. He's like a B-52 bomber dropping shit. We couldn't let him stop. So thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for listening. Share this out to people, you guys, because people like Bart need to be heard. So until next time, peace out, ninjas. We are gone.